project announced to the world as Seth Rogen's first foray into the cannabis industry. So please welcome to the stage Kieran Wadera from Casa Verde Capital, the star and co-writers of Superbad, Knocked Up, Pineapple Express, and the co-founders of Houseplant, Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen.
I'm good, right?
Hello. Hi. Hi, guys.
Good evening, Toronto. Good evening, Collision.
Hello. How are you guys doing? We just wanted to start by thanking the Prime Minister for being our opening act. That was very nice of him. We asked for someone good. We were hoping maybe Rush, but then they got the Prime Minister, and he killed. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And we're available to help him out if he ever needs us.
Yeah, we'll open for him in return at any time he wants. So.
Well, guys, I'm so excited to be here tonight. My name is Kieran Wadera. I'm the managing partner at Casa Verde Capital, a venture fund that focuses exclusively on the cannabis industry, and that is what we're going to talk about tonight. And I am so excited to be here with Seth and Evan. And for those of you who do not know who these two gentlemen are, one, I'd love to know where you've been for the last 20 years, but...
And I'd like to join you.
But I'm going to give a very quick synopsis, and don't get offended. I'm not going to list everything you guys have done because that would take...
Just do the good stuff.
All night. Yeah, exactly. So Seth has a number of acting credits that you're all familiar with: Freaks and Geeks, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Step Brothers, Zack and Miri, Funny People, and soon to be released, The Lion King, where you voiced the role of Pumbaa. It's exciting. And then the two of you have been behind some incredible films as writers, including Superbad, Pineapple Express, and The Green Hornet. And then your production company, Point Grey Pictures, has produced another bevy of hits: 50-50, This Is the End, Neighbors, Sausage Party, Disaster Artist, Blockers, and Long Shot, and now Long Shot, which is in theaters currently with you and Charlize Theron. So you guys have had a busy couple decades.
Yeah, and we've been stoned the whole time.
So...
Not right now, though.
Not right now. Of course not.
That'd be
That'd
crazy.
be insane.
So we are going to talk about cannabis. That is why we're here. But before we do that, in getting to know you guys over the last couple of months, it's been really interesting to understand this friendship and partnership that's actually been there since childhood. Yeah. How does that develop, and more importantly, how do you maintain a partnership like that over the course of so many years? Because I'm sure it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. No, it's very actually. We met each other in bar mitzvah class, so we were 12 years old. And
so we had the mutual Jewishness to
exactly,
bond over,
yeah, which is
initially.
And we very quickly saw that we had the same creative ambitions. And when you're a very, very young person like that, it's not something you see that often. And so when you are the weird 12-year-old kid who secretly wants to be a writer, and you meet another weird 12-year-old kid who secretly wants to be a writer, you very quickly bond over that. And
that bonding for us was watching movies.
Yeah.
Movies are what brought us together. We just had the same taste.
Exactly.
And the same interest in how they were made and how they were written and the messages they had.
Yeah, and we went to high school across the street from a Rogers Video, and we would go and rent movies all the time, and we really developed a love of movies and started working together writing Superbad when we were 13 years old, and really committed very hard to pursuing that as a career path at a very, very, very young age. Yeah, and I think because of that, our creative sensibilities really developed together.
I think we literally developed a codependency where
exactly.
we are not fully functional without each other when it comes to a lot of it.
We made a whole movie about it. Yeah, no, it's not a joke. Yeah.
We were teenagers. Our brains formed in a similar manner over similar topics.
I wish I did not rely on him as much as I...
I want to be my own man.
Exactly. You'll never be. We're linked forever. I'm sorry.
But then, I think it's one thing when you're younger and, you have a ton of ambition and, creativity kind of pours out of you. How have you been able to maintain that, specifically from a point of creativity? How do you stay inspired?
I mean, the number one thing is just passionate, things we're passionate about.
Yeah, we work on things that we ourselves would love.
And every time we don't, it goes bad.
It goes badly, yeah, and that is in every element of what we do. It's the one guiding principle we keep coming back to is what is, if we saw it out there in the world, we would be like, yes, I want that. I want to watch it or whatever the product is, and what even to the next level that's a little that I'm not proud of. It's like, what would I be jealous of if I saw other people doing with movies, especially? That's how I think of it. Is if I read a script or have an idea, it's like, oh, the best part about this is if I didn't get to be the one to do it, I would be so jealous of the person who did, and that has really guided a lot of our choices. Is that.
Got it. Now, let's talk about cannabis. That was a quick, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
What role has cannabis played in your lives, not just as individuals, but also as creators?
A big role. Yeah, I mean, we're from Vancouver, British Columbia, which is, so we grew up in an environment, at least in our insulated, area that we grew up in, that it was very accepted. It was around, and it was socially.
That, like, as kids, we didn't comprehend.
Yeah,
we thought a lot of the world was like that, and we didn't realize Vancouver was kind of special.
It was, and then I moved to Los Angeles and saw that it really, when I was 16, I moved to LA, 17, and I found that it was culturally viewed very differently there, and it filled a much different role in culture there than it did in Vancouver, and I really saw that we had an opportunity with our work to help make people view it the same way that we viewed it, and that it was a really additive part of our day-to-day lives, and so I would talk about it on talk shows all the time in a way that every talk show host has come to me, and David Letterman came to me once, and I was just like, why do you keep asking me about this? I've talked about it so much on your show, and he's like, because no one else will talk about it, and I know other people, it's a part of their lives, but he's like, I'm just fascinated that you're willing to talk about it. And at the same time, we were being very productive. We were producing a lot of movies and making a lot of movies, which also I think was playing against the stigma of someone who used as much weed as I did, and do. And then we really tried to start incorporating it into our work in a way that also kind of broke some of those stigmas. 4-Year-Old Virgin is an interesting one because there's a scene where me and Paul Rudd are playing video games and we're smoking weed and we're talking about other stuff. It was actually one of the first scenes in a movie where people are smoking weed and they're not commenting on it. It is just a part of what they're doing, and they aren't pariahs on society. They're just people hanging out, and weed, it's as though they're having a glass, they're drinking or something like that. And that was, I always viewed that as a big step in a good direction. And then in the meantime, we were writing Pineapple Express, basically.
Yeah, Pineapple Express was the moment where we realized how many people love cannabis and enjoy it, and it makes a difference to their lives, and they feel like it's a normal part of their lives. And it was the first film that was like a giant financial win for a studio that was about cannabis. They were always small, weird movies for stoners, about stoners.
Yeah.
And this was just, it put it in a different lens that cinema never had.
It was a real movie with a real budget, and it
was a comedy, but it didn't treat it like a joke.
No, and it had a story, and it was like a very thoughtful, analysis of the dynamic between like a drug dealer and someone that they sell drugs to, and it's to this day by far the movie that the most people come up to both of us telling us they like, and I think it's because it really appealed to all these people who were forced to secretly love weed and not themselves be able to talk about it or not have it be a part of the culture that they were ingesting and that other people were ingesting in a way that they truly related to. So I think we saw that it was like weirdly cathartic for a lot of people to see this like big piece of pop culture that was accepted in mainstream pop culture that was all about cannabis, and the relationship between people who use it in different ways,
And now,
There you
Thank
go.
you. Yeah.
Thank you, Prime Minister Trudeau.
And so has the challenge gotten a lot easier now, the ability to do it? Because you're right. I mean, I don't think many people knew that about 40-Year-Old Virgin. Obviously, Pineapple Express, a critical part of the subject matter. You've talked about it on talk shows. I've seen you do things even online in, recent years on platforms like Mary Jane. And now you're starting a brand.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Tell us about Houseplant.
Houseplant is our cannabis brand. We are currently only available in British Columbia. It's where we're from. Like I said a lot earlier, it's been a huge part of our lives forever. And we really wanted to try to help facilitate bringing that to as many people as wanted it, and doing it in a way that reflected our values and our sensibilities in every way we could. And we found very quickly that we were actually able to put a lot of ourselves into the product and into the branding, as you would say, and it became a very creatively gratifying experience because we had a few things that we wanted to focus on. One was education, making it accessible for people who were new to it, and the other was kind of reverence or elevation, I guess you would say. I think it's a product that we have a lot of reverence for, and it's something that's traditionally been hidden under people's coffee tables or in the back of your drawer or something like that. And we wish it was something that you were proud to display. Not just that you didn't have shame in displaying, but one step above that you were actually proud to own and proud to display. It's like not even normalization, but elevation, right. I think, is something that we were interested in and are interested in, because it's not just a normal thing to me. It's better than that, Yeah. So those were really the things we talked the most about, is education, design, and how to marry those things, which we, I think, did in a very simple yet effective way, which is something we're very proud of with the product and the brand. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something we've been working on for years and years.
Yeah, talk to us about that, because I don't think people understand how long it takes to build a brand in general, but when you're talking about cannabis, when you're talking about Canada, where you guys are from, and decided to launch, what was that process like, and what have the challenges been?
It was long.
It was a long process. The first process was defining the brand and the company in a way that we were proud of and did these things that we liked. And the second was taking time to navigate the regulations in a way that allowed us to create a company that would be long-lasting and something that we could be proud of, and something that, again, we knew we were holding up to the strictest standards, because anyone who is in the cannabis space here knows that there is a lot of guidelines involved in what you can do, what you can say. And it actually very quickly became a really interesting creative exercise of how can we function within this box, these guidelines? How do we keep to them in the most strict way we possibly can, and still make it seem effortless, and not make it seem like there's any guidelines we're adhering to? Make it just seem like it's exactly what the company itself wants to be.
Yeah, and our commitment to education aligned with that really nicely, where design and education kind of collided. Even within all these regulations, we managed to create a design that lends itself to informing the customers what they're getting and how it's to be used.
Exactly. So just giving each strain its own simple color palette, and then within that, giving each color palette a logo that has lines that correspond to kind of the desired effects of each strain. I think those simple things really lent themselves to a design that we think is very beautiful and something we would be proud to display. And also, is starting to educate people on the different types of cannabis.
Because a lot of people think that they had a bad experience with cannabis because of the cannabis, but a lot of the time you're not using it right, you're not using it in the right manner,
exactly,
in the right location.
And so we started making educational videos. That was another thing that...
Yeah, I mean, if people haven't seen the Houseplant Instagram, it's pretty incredible, and it's you know, we in our seat see brands and pitches all the time. I don't think we've ever seen something, you know, so thoughtful in these certain manners, and can certainly attest to the elevation of that. Talk also about the you know, how you've been able to marry sort of music into that as well, because I know that's a big part of it as well.
Well, I think a lot of the brand to us was how can we help bring this company to life in ways other than just the cannabis flower, you know? And again, in a world where there are marketing restrictions, things like that, a lot of regulations, again, it became an exercise in creativity. So one of the first things we thought of is we created vinyl records that were strain specific, and they each had a mix of songs that were kind of made to, at least in theme, go along with the different strains of cannabis, and each one also was designed with the same color palette as our strains. So it to us was, again, a very simple way of associating the strains with certain activities, certain times of day, certain uses, while playing into the design and what we think is just beautiful about the product itself, and something that, again, we would be proud to display in our homes. So it's a lot of boxes to tick, but I think we found a way to do it that we ourselves were proud of, yeah.
Evan, how has this creative process differed, or what are the similarities to, you know, creating films and television shows? And then also talk about, you know, you guys make these really interesting instructional videos, which is kind of like a throwback to the 70s, you know, PSAs that, you know, we used to see maybe when we were kids. What's that process been like?
I mean, this is extremely different than our other industry that we tend to work in, but a lot of similar things apply, design and communication to audience and all that. But it was an energizing thing to just be put into a similar but extremely different arena where those skills could be applied but completely differently.
Yeah.
And it was fun to experiment with just like singular images and like actual like packaging, which was something in film we never got to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think as far as education goes, again, it's been very gratifying to have a very legitimate way of putting out things that we have always thought were important. Portion control was a video that we made that we're very proud of.
And a very simple part in it where it expresses, take it slow.
Take it very slow.
And these are the kind of things that everyone takes for granted that you shouldn't take for granted. Some people will go to these stores and purchase these things and
no one's telling
them,
them,
don't know.
no one's saying, like, take one hit and then wait and see what happens.
And you know, they buy a pre-roll or something like that and they think this is 1 unit of cannabis.
Exactly.
And it is not.
No, it's not at all. And so I think, like, education is something that, in order to create customers that trust us more and a brand that we are proud of and, again, is trusted, we're trying to not just hopefully have a good product that is pretty, but to let people understand how to use it in a way that is the most conducive to their enjoyment. Even if that means using much less of the product,
sure,
we want that rather than them having a negative experience.
And we want to make sure that, like, connoisseurs like us, like longtime users, love it, but also that my mom can go into a store and she'll be directed to Houseplant because of how accessible it is.
Exactly, that it's accessible and warm and simple, and again based on education and both inviting new people into it, you know.
Yeah. So you currently have one strain which is available in your hometown of Vancouver. When will it be in the rest of Canada? When is Houseplant coming to the U.S.?
It's available in all of British Columbia right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So online and at retailers.
Yeah. We have a meeting with OCS tomorrow, so we plan on hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully.
We would like. We're announcing that we would soon be liking to announce that we are available in Ontario.
But we're taking it slow because we never want to run out of our product. We want to make sure that we're ready for wherever we're going.
But we are building inventory for Ontario right now, and our plan is to come to Ontario next after British Columbia, and we are excited to do that very much so. Yeah.
And then what about your friends down south in the U.S.? When can we expect Houseplant in stores there?
It touches actually on something that also is happening here in Canada right now in America. We would love to come to America. We live in America for the most part, and unfortunately right now we are not 100% comfortable with the climate in America as far as its legality and how people are being treated still in as far as how the war on drugs is being enforced in America. But rather than just sit around and hope that it gets better, we are going to take a very active role in creating a climate in America that we feel comfortable being available in. And so we're starting to work with a lot of organizations in America, again, to deal with people with records and employment and trying to fix the wrongs that have happened during the war on drugs. And it's a very similar thing here in Canada. I think a lot of progress has been made, obviously, and a lot of headway has been made, but there is still not enough being done in our eyes. To be specific, there's a bill, C-93, that is going up to be voted on that we feel needs to be amended. Right now it calls for the pardons for people with minor offenses and possession, and we think that it should call for the deletion of records for people with nonviolent and minor offenses. So if there's any politicians that happen to be here tonight, maybe that would be something to work on, is amending that bill and passing that bill. If there's MPs.
And non-politicians, you can reach out to your MPs.
Yeah, reach out to your MP and bring it up because, again, there's a lot of people who are still, being very negatively impacted by a war on drugs that has ended, and there are people who are now doing things 100% legally that are that people's lives are being very negatively affected by, even though what they did is no longer a crime. And we think that we take that very seriously. We care about it very deeply, and it's ingrained in what Houseplant is, I think, from the ground up. Yeah,
that's great.
Great.
We only have a couple of minutes left, and I mean, thank you so much for bringing that up around sort of the corporate social responsibility around Houseplant. Do you think, again, we sit at an interesting seat and we get to see a lot of interesting people benefiting off of the growth of this industry, and obviously it's negatively impacted so many. What more can, even brands and cannabis companies in the US be doing, and what should we be, how can we sort of join this with you on that end and sort of ensure that it's an inclusive industry for everyone?
I think specifically trying to hire people who have been unfairly targeted by this war on drugs, It generally targets marginalized groups at a exponential rate, even though every group of people uses cannabis the same amount. If you're a minority, you're like several times more likely to be arrested for having it. And in America especially, it can be outrageously detrimental to your life. So I think the thing that everyone can start to do is hire people who would be deemed unhireable because of these offenses, and to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And that's something that in Canada we can all do as well. Until their records are deleted, we can make the fact that they haven't yet been deleted meaningless by ignoring the fact that they have these things on their record and hiring them anyway. And again, I think that's something that can be impactful today, not as a hypothetical hope in the future. Yeah. How's it going?
Well, I think that's a great place to end. Thank you guys so much for what you've done as fans and also for the cannabis industry. And we're looking forward to we can have Houseplant more widely available soon.
So are we.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.